There is the prequel DLC, The Last of Us Left Behind, but I want to talk about that in a separate episode. Hey, Ethan here, and in this episode we'll be looking at The Last of Us Left Behind. It's the critically acclaimed expansion to one of the greatest games ever made, and was released exactly 10 years ago for the PlayStation 3, and now it's time for me to explain why. So, The Last of Us Left Behind was developed by Naughty Dog after the base game, The Last of Us, was released in June 2013. They started work on the project shortly after making the first game. Left Behind was the first time that Naughty Dog has created any kind of single-player story-based expansion. Series creator Neil Druckmann wanted to focus the story around Ellie and the events leading up to when she meets Joel Miller in the main game, particularly on the events with the character of Riley Abel, who was introduced in the comic book The Last of Us American Dreams and was also mentioned by Ellie towards the end of the main game.
Ellie.
Her name was Riley, and she was the first to die.
It was later released first for the PlayStation 3 on February 14, 2014, then later released as part of The Last of Us Remastered in July 2014 for the PlayStation 4, and then released in 2015 as a standalone game for the PS3 and PS4, and then released again as part of The Last of Us Part 1 for PlayStation 5 and PC in 2022 and 2023 respectively. Now, even though I played the PS3 original when I reviewed the first game, I'll be playing it based on the remastered version on the PS4 because it still looks like the PS3 version but has higher resolution visuals and especially way better performance compared to the PS3. But now I think it's time for me to talk about The Last of Us Left Behind. The story of Left Behind takes place between the events of the fall and winter events of the main game and 3 weeks prior to Joel meeting Ellie. It quickly shows a flashback of Joel getting injured and then shows Ellie in a room sleeping with her best friend Riley waking her up, which has been gone for 45 days, and decides to bring Ellie along to show her something. It then shows Ellie in the present day, attending to Joel as she starts to explore an abandoned mall in Colorado trying to find items to help Joel. Later on though, it switches back to Ellie with Riley as they explore an abandoned mall, but this time it's in Boston. Along the way, they find a bottle of whiskey, break into a Halloween store, hold a contest by throwing bricks at cars, and turn on the power at the mall. After that though, it switches back to Ellie in the present day as she tries to reach a helicopter to find supplies while she takes out a bunch of infected along the way but finds what she is looking for. It then again switches back to Ellie with Riley as they attempt to ride on a carousel, take pictures at a photo booth, and discover that Facebook exists.
What's a Facebook?
Maybe it prints our faces in a book?
They then find an arcade and play a ripoff of Mortal Kombat, and then Riley talks about leaving Ellie to regroup with the Fireflies in another city, which causes them to question their friendship. But suddenly Riley brings out water guns and the two proceed to have a water gun fight, as Ellie then apologizes for earlier as they start to dance and then they kiss each other, but is suddenly interrupted by infected. It then suddenly switches back to Ellie in the present day as she defends Joel from oncoming attackers and infected, but is able to reach him in time. But it then suddenly switches back to Ellie and Riley as they run from infected, and then...
I think it's clear.
Ellie. Ellie, your arm.
No.
It then shows Ellie patching up Joel, and then shows Ellie and Riley talking about what they can do now that they have been bit, with Riley saying,
Let's just wait it out. You know, we can be all poetic and just lose our minds together.
which was also referenced by Ellie at the end of the game.
She says, let's just wait it out. You know, we can be all poetic and just lose our minds together.
And that's basically it, because the gameplay and visuals are the same as the base game. Well, that's basically The Last of Us Left Behind, a great story expansion to one of the greatest games of all time. I really liked how they explained how Ellie got bit and how they explored her more as a character, which will make more sense in part 2. But I also forgot that today is Valentine's Day.